It is with great pleasure that we introduce you today to our speaker, Dr. Fortunato Pedro Talani Diambbo, who will present a presentation entitled School Climate and Violence, What Paths for Their Prevention and Reduction in Angolan Schools. Dr. Fortunato holds a PhD in education from the University of Beira Interior, Portugal, and a master's degree in educational administration and management from the University of Évora in Portugal. He has also specialized in higher education management through the Catholic University of Angola and through the Open University of Lisbon, and graduated in educational sciences with a specialization in math education in Angola. Dr. Talani Diambbo is a researcher at the Center for Studies and Research in Pedagogical Sciences at the Lunda Norte Pedagogical School in Universidade Luec and Conde, ULAN, in Angola, where he also serves as assistant professor and general director of the School of Pedagogy. Dr. Diambbo is the author of several books and numerous scientific publications on education, school management, family-school relationships, and educational development. Today's presentation addresses a very important issue for all of our educational systems, the challenge of preventing and reducing school violence. Drawing on the context of Angola and in general in the context of Africa, Dr. Diambbo will discuss with us the current challenges and will also propose some possible pathways as well as policy directions to promote more safe, more inclusive, and more supportive school environments.
Our approach today, we try to do it under a perspective that will obey four elements. Let's move on with the slides, please.
Ok, vamos seguir esse roteiro.
Okay, this is the script. We try to have a legal approach, a framework in public policies, but also educational on school violence. We don't have specific policies in concrete about this problem, so we have had to look into the main documents of management policies, which is our National Plan of Development, and we have tried to see, to look at the plan for the development of youth and others, also other resources, the legislation, the basic legislation of education, and judicial framework for general teaching in universities. We did this collection to try to understand up to what point we have elements in order to assess the policies on climate and school violence. Let's move on. This is a brief introduction. We can pass that. Here, when I was saying that we did some assessment of the normative documents or public policies of the country, one of the main documents is the National Plan for Development of 23-27. It's a document that guides policies, governing policies for a mandate of a state. Since we don't have concrete documents and specific policies of climate and school violence, we had to look into these documents to see in what programs and what areas some aspects are dealt with about climate and school violence. In this document, which is our National Plan of Development of Angola, there are seven areas and 50 programs. Out of the 50 programs, we try we looked into the Area 3 and Area 4, and there are some elements that call our attention of the need to guarantee for teaching, health, and social equality. And they have been essential part to promote violence in schools. In the Area 3, the Axis 3, we tried, looked into three programs. One of the programs is the expansion program and modernization of the teaching system, the program for training of teachers, and of the youth development program. And according to its contents, they should be the ones that should contain the aspects that are related to the guarantee of school climate and the prevention of school violence. In the four axes that is related to the reducing of social inequality, we understand the violence is related to that. And we looked into two programs, the program 22 and 23. 24, he says. Let's move on. Just look into the more concrete programs. In the programs, there are some priorities, many of them, of course. In the 12, there are 9 priorities. Out of the 9 priorities, there are some of them that are aspects that should be very well connected with the situation of the guarantee of a safe teaching. Out of the 9 priorities of the program 12 that are related to that, we look into the 12.1.2, which is the expansion of the network of primary education. In this priority, we looked into the item that is related with the institutions of support, psychopedagogical support. We don't have specific documents, but in this document of management policies, we have some programs that can be highlighted concerning this element. One of them, it's necessary to create services of psychopedagogical help and support, and this is in our National Development Plan. In the program 12, one of the priorities that it's pointed out, the need to development inclusive conditions to access to schooling. We looked into this element because we feel, we think is very much connected with the guarantee of safe education. And in this priority, we looked into the item that guides the necessity to expand the scholarship program for vulnerable girls in order to reduce inequality, gender inequality, and access to education. But one of the great violences that we have in our country is related to gender violence, because there's also a lot of school violence with the most vulnerable schools. So in the development program and plan, we look into the need of the necessity to expand the scholarship program. In priority 12.4.1 is related to the modernization of the teaching system. We looked into the element that is related to integrating reproductive and sexual education into the curriculum. It's important. One of the main problems of school violence in Angola is related to sexual harassment and sexual abuse, mainly with girls, towards girls. We can move to the next slide. In the program 15, related to
nós
the
fizemos
development,
recurso,
the youth
ele tem
development,
4 prioridades.
there
Das
are
4
4
prioridades,
priorities. Out of the
encontramos
4
duas
priorities,
delas
we
que
looked,
têm alguma
we
matéria
found
com
2
afinidade
of them
sobre a
that
garantia
is
do
related
clima
with the
e
guarantee
violência
of the
escolar.
school climate and
A
the
prioridade,
prevention of school
a primeira
violence.
prioridade que é a
The
expansão de
first
infraestruturas de
priority, the
apoio social
expansion
aos
of
jovens,
infrastructure for
implementação
support,
do
social support to
Observatório
the youth,
Nacional da Juventude.
with the
Buscamos esse
implementation
elemento sobre a
with an
juventude,
youth
fazer entender que em
observatory,
Angola,
national
o seu
youth
último
observatory.
censo mostrou
In
que
our last
60% da
census
população
shows that
angolana é
60%
jovem
of the
e
Angola
está
population
na
is
faixa etária
young,
abaixo de
in the
25 anos.
age
Ou seja,
bracket of
Angola é
under
país muito
25
jovem.
years of age.
E os
So we are a
casos
very
de
young country.
violência
The cases of
escolar
violence, school
ocorrem mais
violence,
nessa
they happen
faixa
more
de
in
idade.
this
Então, nós
age
procuramos ver até
bracket.
que
So
ponto
we
o Plano
try
Nacional de
to see up
Desenvolvimento
to what point the
prevê
national
algumas medidas que
plan of
podem
the youth,
acautelar
development of youth,
esta,
can
esta
take on
problemática que
some
enferma
measures that can
as
help
escolas.
with this
Então, o
problem.
governo tem prioridade em expandir os
So
serviços
the government wants
prestados
to
nos centros de
expand the
juventude em
services
matérias de saúde
for
sexual
youth
e reprodutiva.
in
Do pouco que
issues
nós
related to
podemos ler em
sexual and
termos do Plano de
reproductive
Angola,
health.
vimos que o
And
país, nesse
also,
momento,
we
em
saw that
termos
the
de
country
políticas
right now, in
educativas,
terms of
está
educational
ainda
policies,
preocupado com a
is
garantia
still
de
concerned
acesso
with the
à
guarantee
educação, de uma forma muito mais
to
concreta, porque Angola ainda se
access
debate com esta
education access.
problemática.
We
E
still
estou em crer,
face this
este é um dos
problem.
motivos que faz com que
And
ainda não
this
tenhamos
is one of the
documentos concretos
reasons
específicos
why
sobre
we
a
don't
matéria,
have concrete documents
particular sobre a
about
matéria
school
de
climate and school violence.
violência escolar. A outra prioridade
The
tem que
other
ver com o
priority is
desenvolvimento de
related to
plataformas
the
nacionais
development
de
of a
voluntariado. Buscamos um item que
volunteer
tem que ver com a
platform, a
promoção
national
de cartilha de
platform
jovem exemplar.
that
Ou
has to
seja,
do with the
o
promotion
governo
of
está ciente de que há
a
necessidade de
book
se ir
or a
explorando
manual
algumas
of
atividades
the
para
exemplary
promover
youth
a cultura do bem, do
with
bem-estar
the social
dos jovens
communication
modelos.
in order to
Daí que
promote the
também
well-being of the
prevê
modern
a
youth.
promoção da
And
cartilha
this
de jovem
has to do
exemplar através dos
with
órgãos de
creating a
difusão
manual or a
massiva, né, órgãos de
book in
comunicação.
order to
Podemos avançar, por favor.
publicize this idea more and more.
No programa 23,
In the program
que
23
tem que ver com a ação
is
social
related to social
e
action
valorização
and
da
family
família. Buscamos
valuing.
esse programa porque
We
entendemos
looked
nós
into the
não é
program
possível
because we
falarmos
understand that it's not
da
possible to
garantia de
speak
clima
of
de
the
boa
guarantee of
convivência
school
sem
climate or
tocarmos
school
nos
coexistence
aspectos que
without
têm que ver
mentioning
com a
the
família,
aspects
sendo o
related to the
contexto
family,
primário para a educação de qualquer
because
ser,
this
e
is the
que muitos
primary
problemas
context for
que
education.
enfermam
A
as
lot
escolas
of
são
problems
consequência
that
da
schools face
educação que as
are
pessoas
a
também
consequence of
trazem
education that people
das
bring
famílias.
from their families.
Nesse programa,
In
fizemos
the
recurso
program,
a
we
três
look
prioridades que ele
into
aponta.
3
Né? Uma das
priorities
prioridades
of the
tem que
program.
ver com
One
a
of the
implementação do
priorities is
Observatório
related
Nacional
to
da
the
Criança.
implementation
É
of
necessário
the
implementar esse
Children's
Observatório
National
Nacional da Criança,
Observatory.
onde
It's important to implement
pode-se
that
garantir o
in order to
bem-estar
guarantee the well-being
desses meninos.
of the
E porque
children.
também em Angola é muito
And
comum
also
a
because
violência
in
escolar,
Angola, it's very
consequência dos
common school
meninos,
violence
meninos
as a
abaixo
consequence
de
of
10 anos, entre
boys.
6 a 10
Boys
anos,
under
meninos
10 years old, 6 to
na
10
fase da
years old,
adolescência, que às
in
vezes vão à escola
teens.
já com alguns
Sometimes they go to
objetos
schools.
contundentes nas pastas.
Sometimes they
Então,
carry
buscamos esse
weapons
programa
or
e essa
knives
prioridade
in
para
their
refletirmos
bags.
nele em
So
termos de
it's
garantia
important.
de
This is
clima mais
important in order
saudável
to
das
guarantee
escolas.
a more healthy climate for
A
schools.
outra prioridade tem que ver
The
com
other priority is
assegurar a
related to
promoção e manutenção dos
ensuring the
serviços de
promotion and the
denúncia
maintenance of the
sobre
servants
abuso contra
of
as crianças.
complaints
Todos esses elementos que estou
or
aqui a fazer referência estão
or
no Plano Nacional de
claims.
Desenvolvimento de Angola. Mas,
And
portanto,
this is
talvez
all part
as
of
ações concretas
the
específicas é
national
que
plan
ainda
for the
estão,
development of the
não devem
youth,
estar a funcionar
but
como deveria.
maybe a
E
lot of
expandir
this is
também
not
a rede de
yet working
acolhimento
as it
de
should.
lares de
Also
infância,
expanding
as
the
famílias substitutas,
centers
né?
for
Nós em
the
Angola temos
receiving
aquilo que se chama meninos de rua.
children.
Temos também
We
aqueles
still
casos de
have
desorientação
street
familiar,
children and
consequência de
kids that are
divórcios,
homeless, or a lot of
de
times as
divórcios,
a
né,
consequence
dos
of
lares, né?
divorces
Então, os meninos
in the
muitas vezes quando
households.
vivem
The
em
boys, a lot of
contexto
times, when they
familiar,
live in
sem
a
o pai,
rough
ou só com o
family
pai, só com o pai
situation
ou só com a
without a
mãe,
father
tendem a
or
ter uma
just
educação
with
um
a
pouco
single
desorientada.
parent,
Daí que o Estado
his
prevê
education
expandir
is a
uma
bit
rede de acolhimento
misguided. So we need to have
de lares
a
de
network
infância.
of houses to receive and institutions to receive these children. In the other priority also to implement the project to awareness of families in order to guarantee the necessary values for well-being and well coexistence. After that, looking into these elements, out of the 50 programs that the National Development Plan has, only these 4 can be close to the aspects in order to guarantee a safer environment for school. But however, as I said in the beginning, that Angola is a country that we have 60% of the population under 25 years of age. So we looked into the National Plan for the Youth Development of 25 and 27. It's a very recent plan from last year. And here we looked into these 4 axes, and these 4 axes, they are under 4 dimensions: education and teaching, health, safety, and the fight against juvenile delinquency, and the poverty eradication. These 4 are the main ones and are connected, very much connected with the issue of the guarantee of the school climate. Here, health comes up in a more cross-sectional way. Health, a lot of times, we have people with mental problems, and this is also part of the program and the plans. Education is very much connected, but also here, the safety and the fight against juvenile delinquency. There are some actions in this plan, of the youth plan, the need to guarantee the struggle against juvenile delinquency that grows, and poverty. The levels of poverty, they are connected, and they contribute a lot to a large scale for the occurrence of crimes and violence in schools, because as a consequence of the problem that we have thefts of material and materials, and also public goods also can be objects of thefts for commercialization. So the objectives that we need to highlight are 2 of them. One of the objectives is to enable and implement a program to fight and prevent risk behavior in youth. So the problem, to deal with this problem, it's important to prevent risk behaviors in the youth, in our youth, since the majority of the population are young people. 60% is a lot of people. And also the plan also calls for the attention to development projections on education, sexual reproductive wealth, aiming early pregnancy. The early pregnancy, in many studies that we've seen in Angola, it's affects in the element that people with negative behavior can use in the context of bullying in schools. This plan wants to develop projects for the prevention of habits with harmful effects in youth.
Agora, fizemos recurso a alguns normativos de
we looked
políticas
into
educativas
some other legislation of
achamos
educational
que,
policies that we think,
são muito pobres em termos
unfortunately,
de garantir
are very poor
elementos
in terms of
para,
guaranteeing elements, sufficient elements
para bom clima
for a good climate
escolar.
good
Destaca-se
school
aqui o decreto
climate,
presidencial número 162/23, que é muito
the
recente também,
Presidential Act
2023,
162 of
que é o regime
23
jurídico do sistema de ensino geral,
of the
que
judicial
no seu artigo
regime of the
58.2,
teaching
a linha A e B,
system.
destaca a
In
necessidade de
Article
elaborar regime
58
disciplinar dos
talks
alunos
about
para definir
the
algumas
necessity
regras
of
de
creating a
gestão no contexto
disciplinarian
escolar.
regime or rules
Destaca
of
também no seu
students
artigo
for students
19 a
and to
necessidade de
enable
garantir
good
órgãos de
management. And
apoio,
Article
não é?
19
E
talks about
acompanhamento.
guaranteeing
Isso tem que ver com
institutions of
as comissões de
support
pais em
and
de educação e o
monitoring.
gabinete
These can be
de
parents'
acompanhamento
committees
psicopedagógico.
and
Já
an
o documento
area for the
principal,
monitoring
que é a
of
Lei de
the
Base da
psychopedagogical
Educação de
monitoring.
Angola,
The
somente destaca
basic
a
law, the
questão
basic legislation for education in Angola,
sobre a
only
violência
highlights the
escolar no
issue
seu artigo
about
15,
school
não
violence
é?
in
Que
the
é
Article
onde chama a
15.
atenção a
And this,
necessidade de promover os
and
valores
here we
morais,
see
cívicos e
the
patrióticos.
necessity to
Entende-se que
promote
cidadão
moral
que tem
values, civic
aprimoramento
values,
desses
and
valores
patriotic values.
raramente
So,
vai se envolver em atos de
because it's
violência
believed
no
that if
contexto da escola.
they look
Pode
into these
avançar, professor.
values, then we can prevent violence in schools.
Agora, clima e violência escolar
Now,
versus realidade
climate
social em
and school
Angola.
violence
Aqui é pouca
against the
coisa, é
social reality
facto.
in Angola.
Eu
This is a
resumo tudo isso em
fact.
facto. A violência no contexto da
Violence
escola
in
em
school
Angola
context
e
in
clima
Angola
tenso
and a tense
nos
climate
estabelecimentos de ensino é
in the
facto.
schools, it's a reality, it's a fact.
Os principais
The
tipos de
main
violência que
kinds of
assistimos nas
violence,
escolas
types of
angolanas
violence
têm
that
a
we
ver com
see in
agressão
Angolan
física e
schools
moral,
are related to
o
physical
bullying,
aggression, moral
a violência
aggression,
baseada no gênero,
bullying,
como dizia
gender
anteriormente,
violence,
e o caso do assédio sexual, que é
and sexual
muito apontuado.
harassment.
É uma
That's
violência muito
very
apontuada.
prominent.
O assédio
That's
sexual que ocorre
very big,
principalmente de professor
and
para
it
com
happens. And it
as
happens a
meninas, para
lot
com as alunas, não é? É
with
óbvio que
teachers,
vice-versa, é possível
involving
ocorrer
teachers and
o inverso,
girls.
mas em
It
maior
can
dimensão ocorre
the
mais
the great the
com,
greater majority is
com de professor
teachers
para aluno e não está reduzida
with
de aluno para professor.
students. But
Também
it can happen
identificamos as
the
principais
other way
causas
too.
da
But it's
violência
mainly
escolar em
teachers
Angola.
against the
Em
girls.
Angola,
Also,
entendemos nós que dos
we
principais
understand that in Angola, that
fatores
one of the
para a
main
ocorrência da violência
factors
escolar,
for
primeiro é a
violence in schools
insuficiente ou a
is the
falta de ações
lack
concretas
of
e
concrete
coordenadas
actions and
baseadas em
coordinated
instrumentos
actions
legais
based in
específicos
specific
sobre
legal
e para
terms
o
or
combate à
instruments
violência escolar.
about and for
Por outro
the
lado, a negligência da
struggle against
família
school
e
violence.
ou
Also, family
que negam as
negligence
suas
that
responsabilidades. Não é? Porque quando a família nega as suas
deny their
responsabilidades,
responsibilities. When
a
the family
tendência é
don't take
colocar na
on their
sociedade
responsibilities,
seres
they
humanos com
place on
comportamentos
society,
desviantes.
we place in society
O outro
human
aspecto também
beings with
tem que ver
devious
com
behaviors.
os pais
Another aspect
autoritários
have to do
excessivamente
with
e ou a vida
excessively
familiar abusiva.
authoritarian parents or
Entendemos que a
abusive
família,
family life.
a forma como os pais
The
passam a
way that
educação,
the
o
parents,
estilo de gestão familiar que
the
os pais
the
assumem
style for family
também
management that parents take
influencia
on also influence
na
in
violência escolar,
in school
porque
violence
acabam o tipo de
because
educação, o tipo de estilo que eles vão
the
optar,
the
muito
style, the parenting
autoritário,
style
às
that they have,
vezes
very
cedem tarefas e
authoritarian,
castigos muito
and
elevados para os
sometimes
meninos e
they
esses ficam
chastise or
traumatizados e tendem a cometer
harsh discipline, and
erros
this
ou
can create
crimes no contexto
traumas
da
that can
escola.
affect crimes and others.
Pode avançar, professor.
And you can move forward, please.
Aqui nós trouxemos aqui
Here,
três exemplos de ocorrências,
three
não é? Que é
examples
facto, né, de
of
ocorrências
happenings,
de violência
real
na escola,
cases of
que dos três
violence in
exemplos que trouxemos
schools.
aqui,
Three examples I like to mention.
houve mortes, não é? Porque a
There
violência
were
na
deaths
escola fica mais
involved.
gravosa quando
And
até
of
acontecem mortes
course,
no contexto da
when
escola.
there are
Esses são
deaths
três exemplos,
involved, then
são
it's
vários
a more
fatos que estão a
serious
ocorrer em Angola.
situation. These are
Pode
three
avançar, professor.
examples that I mentioned here.
Pode avançar esse slide.
We can pass that one.
Agora, iniciativas do governo angolano para mitigar
The
a violência
initiatives
da
of
escola. Como
Angolan
dizia,
government to
nós
mitigate
fizemos
violence in
recurso
schools.
a documentos gerais do
We
país,
looked into
porque
general
não existem
documents of
ainda
the country
documentos
because there
concretos
aren't yet
específicos para
concrete and specific documents or
para tratar da
legislation
situação do
to
clima e
deal with school
violência
climate and
escolar.
school
O que está a
violence.
existir é que as escolas vão se apegando dos documentos gerais e vão
But schools
fazendo
have to
algumas
rely on
ações
general
para
documentation
mitigar
in order to create
esta
actions
situação.
and mitigation of this
Vamos
situation.
avançar, professor.
We can move on.
E mais em frente, só trouxemos uma
Also,
listagem de
this is a list
do
of
nosso ponto de
some,
vista, que achamos que
of
se
our
forem
point of
tidos em
view,
conta,
some statements
podem
that should be
ajudar
taken into
na
account in order to
redução
help
ou a prevenção da
reduce
violência
or prevent
nas
violence.
escolas. E muito obrigado.
And thank you so
Acho que
much.
La
Congratulations
diáspora
for the
académica también,
presentation.
sí, se entiende. Perfecto, hay un comentario también de Robson de Souza.
There's a comment here by Robson Souza. This is very close with the idea of military schools in
Para
Brazil.
continuar conversando muito,
Of
los
course, we
invitamos
could be
para que
talking a
agenden
lot here, but
próximo septiembre,
please, we invite you for in
2027, los días 8, 9 y
September
10, será el
and
congreso
date 8, 9, and
the
10 will be
11th conference of the International Observatory for School Violence and Climate Prevention will be held in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and we would like to invite you to reserve the date, to save that date, and hopefully continue this conversation in September next year. Thank you very much, Dr. Talani Diambbo, for this wonderful
Muito obrigado.
conversation. We are very grateful, and thank you everybody from the different countries, Cuba, Spain, United States, Chile. Thank you. See you on our next webinar. Brasil.
Muito obrigado. Esperamos.
Thank you.
Tchau.
Congrats.